Today is Friday, March 25th. We're talking about how some of the world's most powerful leaders are cracking down harder on the war in Ukraine, what they promised, and where they're drawing the line. Also, how a groundbreaking brain implant is helping a completely paralyzed man communicate for the first time in years, what he asked for once it started working. Plus, order a ride through Uber and you might get a yellow taxi. New union battles at Amazon and Starbucks, and what to expect this weekend for Hollywood's biggest night. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. A historic gathering of leaders ended with a lot of new promises to support Ukraine and punish Russia. For starters, the U.S. and Western allies rolled out more sanctions against hundreds of government officials, Russian elites, and defense companies. The U.S. also announced billions more in Ukraine aid, and the U.S. said it would accept 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. About 4 million Ukrainians have fled the conflict already, but for now, most are in other European countries. Then President Biden and his counterparts announced another round of weapons shipments for Ukraine, and they talked about the possibility Russia could launch chemical, biological, or nuclear attacks. In preparation, NATO said it would give Ukraine detection equipment, protection, and medical support. And it will train Ukrainians in crisis management and decontamination. On top of all that, President Biden called for Russia to be kicked out of the G20. That's the group that represents the world's 20 largest economies. If other members agree with Biden, the step would isolate Russia even further from the rest of the world and restrict its influence in the global economy. All that said, Ukraine's president is asking for much more. For example, new fighter jets. Also, he's still pressing for a no-fly zone over Ukraine, which the U.S. and NATO don't want to do, at least for now, because it would mean involving troops, and they want to avoid a direct war with Russia. There's another sticking point as well. European nations are stopping short of totally blocking Russian oil and gas imports the way the U.S. and Canada have done. Europe is much more dependent on Russian fuel. But that also means big business for Russia, paying the government what it needs to support their military. So next, President Biden is expected to announce an agreement with the European Union to send American natural gas to Europe this year. The hope is that Europe can become less dependent on Russia. Biden's trip continues today in Poland. The U.S. has a new system to handle a record number of migrants on the U.S.-Mexico border, and experts are calling it the most sweeping change to the asylum process in a quarter century. Remember, migrants can apply for asylum when they feel their life is in danger in their home countries, but they have to prove they're oppressed in court. Well, under the new policies, migrants who want asylum can have their claims reviewed by asylum officers instead of immigration judges who are overwhelmed with the cases already. The Biden administration says the goal is to have the entire asylum process take about 6 months. These days, it takes about 5 years on average. For the new plan to work, the government will need to hire hundreds of new asylum officers. So ICE officials say it's going to be rolled out slowly, starting in a couple of months. Some immigration advocates are praising these changes. They say people fleeing hardships in their home countries should not have to wait years to know what their futures hold. But others don't like the idea of pushing people through a complex immigration system so quickly. They worry it won't be enough time for them to get good lawyers and prepare their cases. So the new policy could end up facing challenges in court. Europe is dealing with another surge of COVID-19 because of an even more contagious version of the Omicron variant. We're talking about BA2. And it's not just common in Europe. The World Health Organization says it's now the most dominant version of COVID-19 around the world. Here in the U.S., the CDC says about a third of new COVID-19 cases are BA2. And health officials expect case numbers to rise, since researchers have found it spreads 80% faster than the original Omicron. And remember, that variant was actually considered much more contagious than even earlier versions of COVID-19. But don't panic. Experts also say BA2 likely will not cause another major COVID-19 surge here. They credit the vaccines as well as the winter surge that gave a lot of Americans some level of immunity. Also, even if the U.S. does see a big uptake, studies have shown BA2 does not make people more sick than earlier versions of COVID-19. So most cases are expected to be mild. In a world first, a man who was once completely paralyzed is able to communicate with a special kind of brain implant. The man is conscious, he can see, hear, and smell, and he has thoughts. But for the last 4 years, he's been completely locked in, meaning he can't even move his eyes or mouth. So researchers in Switzerland implanted electrodes to his brain to directly record the activity of certain brain cells. It took a lot of practice to control them, but now he can select letters one at a time to make words and even sentences. It's pretty slow, like one letter a minute, but scientists say it's been a huge breakthrough, and it gives them a glimpse into the man's quality of life. So after all these years, what did he have to say? Well, once the implant started working, he had a few requests. He wanted beer, and he wanted to listen to music from the band Tool. He also asked if his 4-year-old son would like to watch a Disney movie with him. Now, researchers are hoping to develop the technology more to make it faster. Scientists also say more studies are needed to look into the safety and effectiveness of the implants on a wider scale. More news is just ahead, but first, let's take a moment for our sponsor. If you're in need of loungewear that looks and feels good, and let's be honest, who isn't these days, then you're going to love Tommy John. You can feel cozy, but not lazy, in new elevated women's and men's loungewear from Tommy John. I'm talking about high-quality, breathable, super soft and comfortable fabric that hangs just right. In fact, you know that feeling when your favorite loungewear is in the dirty laundry and nothing else is really what you want to wear? Well, that's how I feel about my Tommy John lounge joggers. So now I have 2 pairs. And in addition to the joggers, they also have cozy and stylish bralettes, leggings, and pajama pants. I really like the women's lounge Henley. It's a great go-to shirt that I can wear whether I'm on a Zoom call or on the couch watching Netflix. And returns and exchanges are free with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or it's free guarantee. So see for yourself and get 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/newsworthy. Shop TommyJohn.com/newsworthy for 20% off. TommyJohn.com/newsworthy. See site for details. In a groundbreaking new deal, Uber is teaming up with its one-time archenemy, the taxicab. Yep, those iconic yellow cabs all over New York City will now be listed on the Uber app. As the Wall Street Journal explains, the partnership could ease Uber's driver shortage while possibly helping taxis in New York City get more customers. Here's how it will work. The city's cab-hailing technology will integrate with Uber's, so essentially the cabs will be taking requests for rides straight from the Uber app. And Uber says the taxi cab will cost around the same as an Uber X, which is the least expensive option. While Uber has teamed up with some taxi services overseas, this marks its first citywide partnership in the US. And Uber says this is just the start. By 2025, it wants to list every single taxi in the world on its app. Amazon could soon have its first ever union in the US, and maybe its second too. First up, warehouse workers in Staten Island, New York will start voting today on joining an independent group led by current and former employees. They want better pay and safer worker conditions, and that vote ends next week. Separately, at an Alabama warehouse, employees are wrapping up a re-vote to unionize. Workers voted against a union there last year, but the National Relations Labor Board later ruled the company interfered and influenced its employees, so they ordered a new election. On that one, ballots are also due today and will be counted in the next few days. But Amazon is still campaigning against the unions, saying it already has competitive pay and just implemented brand new safety training last year. Plus, it's reminding its employees these unions would be brand new and have no experience managing the yearly dues, so joining would be a risk. But what would it all mean for the customers? Well, the New York Times says unionizing would most likely change the labor model that makes same-day delivery possible. By the way, another big American corporation is adding a new union into the mix. Starbucks baristas at a Seattle location voted this week to unionize. That makes it the 7th company-owned Starbucks to vote to join a union since December, but the first one in the coffee giant's hometown. A bunch of celebrities are getting together this weekend to raise money for Ukrainians caught in the middle of war. Dozens of stars like Steve Martin, Billy Porter, Annette Bening, Cynthia Nixon, Martin Short, John Stamos, and Kristen Chenoweth are taking part in a 10-hour telethon. The event will also feature some Ukrainians, including actor Oleg Karpenko. He co-starred alongside Ukrainian President Zelensky in Servant of the People. The telethon is called Stars in the House, and it airs tomorrow from noon to 10 p.m. Eastern. You can watch it online at a link we'll include in our episode notes or listen on SiriusXM. It's almost time for Hollywood's biggest night, the Academy Awards. Sunday's Oscars will showcase some familiar traditions, brand new changes, and a neck-and-neck Best Picture race. It looks like the top 2 contenders for the night's top prize are Netflix's Power of the Dog and Apple TV's Coda. Dog actually leads the noms with a whopping 12. In all, there are 23 honors or categories, but 8 of them will be pre-taped. And this year, Academy members will not be the only ones voting on their favorite films. In the all-new fan favorite category, fans on Twitter were able to cast their vote using hashtag #OscarsFanFavorite. The movie that got the most votes will get a shout-out during Sunday's ceremony. But if you aren't in it for the awards, there's plenty more to see. Like after 3 years with no host, the Academy is going big this year with 3 hosts: Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, and Regina Hall. And you'll see musical performances from stars like Billie Eilish, Beyoncé, and Reba McEntire, who are performing songs that were nominated for Oscars. To catch all the action, tune into ABC when the Academy Awards starts Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Or if you're going for the glam, red carpet footage kicks off at 6:30 Eastern. And tune in right here tomorrow for our special edition Saturday episode. We're talking with People Magazine's Janine Rubenstein all about the Oscars, from the controversies to the predictions and even some behind the scenes. Well, that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. But first, a message from our sponsor, Pampers. Okay, parents, if you have an active baby or toddler like I do, then you know that means they're not just active at playtime, they're also active on the changing table, which is not so fun for us parents. That's just one of the reasons I am loving Pampers Cruisers 360 Fit diapers. Cruisers 360 Fit allows me to avoid trying to secure the diaper tape between kicks, and instead it's quick and easy to just pull them on my little wiggly one. Then it's super easy to remove them in seconds with easy tear sides. And the 360 gap-free fit is great for playtime as well. I love that it stretches around my baby's waist so there's no gapping, leaking, or falling off. Instead, my baby is free to play, feeling comfortable and dry. In fact, to keep baby skin healthy, Cruisers 360 Fit locks wetness away from skin for up to 12 hours. It lets us all sleep through the night, and little rashes here and there that we used to notice are not happening anymore. So buy in-store, look for the Pampers Cruisers 360 Fit, and download the Pampers Club app today to start earning rewards with every diapers and wipes purchase. Now back to Feel Good Friday. A California teenager is doing her part to make sure all girls have the tools to take care of themselves. Kaylee Joy Cooper says during the pandemic, she started thinking about the term she kept hearing: self-care. She decided it should not be a luxury, but rather a necessity. So she came up with a nonprofit called Girl Well. It makes wellness kits for homeless and fostered teenage girls. It started when Kaylee used her own money to buy items for self-care kits for 60 girls, including books, socks, and jewelry. She even tucked handwritten notes into every single bag, reminding every girl how much she was valued and loved. Some of the kits went to girls in the foster care system, and they told Kaylee how much they appreciated having something that's just theirs. So that inspired her to make even more and get sponsors. So now she partners with schools and foster homes in 5 states to distribute the kits, and she works with different brands to stock the bags. Her next goal, bringing her kits to all 50 states to reach girls all around the country. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more about the Academy Awards, then join us again on Monday for your next news roundup. For now, thank you so much for listening and have a great weekend.